right, thank you everyone for joining. I am excited to get us started here. All right, we will hop in. Um, so here's just a guide on some best practices. I am very excited to have everyone here. If you'd like to chat your name and institution, so everyone else can see who's here and where you're from, that would be wonderful. You can also go ahead a little bit. Oops, there you go. Share an emoji based on, how long you've been a partner with us. Welcome, Craig. I'm gonna move forward, but please continue to share in the chat. Alrighty, so I am Christina. I have been with Mentor Collective for coming up on 6 years in November, in a number of different roles. And I'm very excited to chat with you all about some of my favorite features, some features that I always really like to highlight for the partners that I work with. And I also want this to be something that works for you all. So looking ahead at what we're going to review today, my eyes are on the time so that we can spread our time evenly. But these are the topics that we're going to work on. And I also wanted to give everyone the opportunity, if there's something here that you're really, really interested in, that you really want to make sure, we spend some time on, let me know that. Let me know that in the chat to say, hey, I'm really, really interested in thinking about engagement data. That's what I'm focusing on in my program right now. You can let me know that and I'll keep that in mind as well. With that said, oh, great. Thank you so much, Elaine, Marianne, Haley. Great. Great to have you here. All righty. Let's talk matches. So has anyone here not started matching in their program yet? You can just put that in the chat too. If you haven't, you've probably been thinking with your CSM about maximizing the matches that are in your program. And maybe you're using these, maybe you haven't, but I wanted to chat through some different ways that we can optimize and really maximize the number of matches that you're able to make. When students are matched, that means they are being supported by a mentor. Typically, in order to be matched, we have a mentee complete a matching, tell us that they want to be in the program by registering, and also complete their matching survey. But we have some alternatives that can help us to match more folks and thereby reach more folks with matching. So these are our different participation models that maybe you know about, maybe you have not heard of yet. We have simplified registration where we register mentees and they have to complete their matching surveys. Simplified matching, they have to register, but we match them without a matching survey. Default participation, we just say we're going to match everybody. And mandatory participation where maybe this is for a small program or for a particular school and we want everyone to complete their matching survey and we're going to match them. Really want to think about these first three and how those can be useful for the programs that you are running at this time. So when you start matching, maybe you've already started. I would expect you've all started, but maybe some people, I didn't see anyone in the chat say they didn't start matching, so I'm gonna assume you've all started matching by now. So you have some matches in your program. Maybe you have tons of people in there. Maybe, you're at your goal. Maybe you haven't quite reached it yet. These are some things that you can think about to reach that goal. So I would consider, any of these based on what your population is. But I want to let you know why I encourage folks to think about these. So if we have 1,000, excuse me, 1,000 mentees that we've invited, uh, this is just our typical, they have to register, they have to complete the matching survey. 1,000 mentees invited, 22 register. Of that, 80% complete their matching survey. Of that, 73% are logging conversations. And so we have 130 engaged mentees. Pretty good. Over here, we're going to match everyone. 100% of them are registered. All 1,000 are registered. We don't wait for them to complete the matching survey. We match them. 22% log conversations. That's going to be less than this number over here, right? We have less folks who are logging their conversations, but 90 more engaged mentees when we matched everybody. This option is default matching, so we're just going to say everyone that we invite, we are going to match. And I find these numbers really compelling because while we have less conversations logged, while engagement overall is going to be lower, we have 90 mentees, 90 students that are engaged in their mentorships and receiving support because of the actions that we took. If we go back here, so this is looking at default participation. We can also think about these other options as well, where we just say, well, we'll just register everyone and wait for them to complete their matching survey. They have to take a step to be matched, which leaves us to think they might be more engaged, but we've taken one step away. The same thing with simplified matching, where we have them register and then we move forward with matching without the matching survey. So here we're able to really use the technology we have to match these big groups of folks. So if you have 1,000 mentees and you're going to match them, you're going to need some help to do it. You're not going to be able to do that manually or in a spreadsheet or anything like that. But we are able to do that pretty quickly. We're also be able to identify quickly and clearly who is engaged, who might need an additional nudge or some more support. You can support target populations, and that can be a great option for any of these three models. Supporting a specific population, maybe you want to support the folks that are that are on academic probation. Maybe you want to support the folks that are in a particular retention risk group. For any of these options, you can say, oh, we're going to match everyone who is on academic probation after October 30th. We're going to match everyone who is a first-generation student. We're going to match everyone who registered but did not complete their matching survey. So that's this simplified matching participation and is a first-generation student. So you can combine these different options to optimize your matching and to get more folks in the door so that they're receiving that support. If you have any questions or any, thoughts or comments on this, feel free to add them to the Q&A now. Jasmine, I don't think I'm able to see that, so if you can share that, that would be wonderful if anything does end up there.
Yes, we'll do.
Thank you. We are still learning, still researching what engagement looks like for these different matching models. Probably, I would say 2 years ago, we wouldn't really be thinking about these different models as much. This is something new that we're introducing as a best practice because we've had such success with many partners in expanding mentorship support by meeting students where they are in different ways. Sometimes that opt-in can be a hard hurdle to get over. So these are different ways that we can expand the number of students you have matched. I'm going to turn us now to looking at engagement data. It is October 29th, probably with the CSMs you are working with. You are talking a lot about engagement. That is what I am talking to my partners about. So these are some questions I like to ask and think about when we're looking at engagement data. And I didn't include this, but I guess I'll start with this. Why is engagement data important, right? Why do we want to think about that, right? That is how we know that people are talking. We only know what they tell us. We only know if they are logging conversations and they let us know, hey, I've been talking with my mentee, I've been talking with my mentor. In a moment, I'm going to take a peek at the dashboard so we can see kind of in real time how to find these things. But I'm always interested in who is and who is not engaging. When they're not engaging, do they have text relay access? How long have they been matched? What participation model did you use? What are their start of program assessment scores, if there are any assessment scores? So, for example, if we don't have text relay access, they're not able to connect via text, which means there's a way that there's one less way that we're tracking how they are connecting. If they've been matched just for a week, well, we'll nudge them after a month to talk. It might take a little time for them to log a conversation. So we can give them a little bit of time. In different participation models, as we just reviewed, can have varying impacts on engagement numbers. I am going to, if you'll bear with me, does it stay shared? Yes, it does. Super. All right. So I want to take a peek now at our at a demo dashboard. I am going to start right here on your dashboard. If you want to, you can follow along with me for a program that you work with. You're very welcome to do that. So when we look right away, we know this is the number of conversations that have been logged, but we want to dig a little deeper into that. One of the things I'm always doing when I'm preparing to chat with a partner is looking at how many pairs have not logged a conversation. So I come over, I'll do that a little more slowly. I come to the mentorships page. I'm going to filter mentorships all the way down, mentorship filters. So that's going to filter the mentorship, not just the mentee or not just the mentor. I want to look at how many conversations, how many pairs do not have a conversation logged. I also want to take out the text relay. The text relay sometimes logs a conversation if each counterpart sends 2 texts within a 24-hour period, so 4 texts total, it's going to log a conversation. But that might not happen. I don't usually reply to people on the same day. Just doesn't happen for me. But we still track the number of texts that are exchanged. So I want to see who's not doing that, right? Who do we have no record of talking? Let's see. And I also want to make sure that they are still matched because people get unmatched for a variety of different reasons. We only want to look at the pairs currently matched. Here, it gives me a list of 5 pairs that have not yet logged a conversation. It gives me the date they were matched. This is a demo program, right? These dates are, not really that meaningful. But let's say all of these dates say August 17th, 2025. By now, they have received messages from Mentor Collective to log conversations. They've received reminders. So if they're not logging conversations yet, it's time to think about what's going on. It could be the mentee is unresponsive. It could be the mentor is unresponsive. It could be they're talking and they, you know, just aren't telling us that they're talking. So this is an opportunity to talk with your PSM about how you can best support the folks in this category. But it's also worth thinking about what that number is. I think there's 10 matches total in this test program, but let's say there's 100 matches here and we have 5 pairs that have not logged a conversation or used the text relay. Overall, that's a pretty good number. We won't necessarily have everyone logging conversations here, but we want to have as many people as possible logging those conversations. So I hope this view, these filters are a helpful way for you to kind of keep tabs on where your program is landing, who is or is not logging conversations, something I use all the time. I also really like to use the data that's right here on your program intelligence chart. So I think it defaults to total conversations logged, but there are some other options you can look at here. can look at average conversations per pair. Overall, how many pairs are there per conversation? If there's, one or two, that's a good place to be landing. We can also look at the pairs logging 3 or more conversations. And we can look at average SMS exchanged per pair. So that's how many text messages have been exchanged using the Mentor Collective tool by pair. All of these can give you some insight into where engagement is landing for your program that is a little deeper than just the number of conversations that have been logged here. This is a great number to look at, to focus on, to observe as it hopefully is increasing over time. But there are other indicators of engagement and continued engagement in your program that you can be considering here. I am going to share my slideshow again. Please feel free to put any questions, put any thoughts in the chat. I'm happy to hear them, but otherwise I'm going to continue moving forward to look at assessment data. Like engagement data, assessment data is probably something that you've been thinking about, that you've been chatting with your CSM about, or maybe you're getting ready to talk about that. Maybe those assessments just went out and you're prepping for what those conversations look like. So I'm going to be focusing on the sense of belonging data point. If you have a career-oriented program, the sense of belonging data point is not in your assessment, but how we will think about looking at your assessment data and working with it can remain constant here. So you can kind of sub in whatever your most important area for your assessment data is. And again, you're welcome to, follow along with your dashboard, with your program or your programs. So the sense of belonging question, or the sense of belonging set of questions, includes these 3 questions. I feel comfortable in my school. I feel like an important member of my school's community, and I feel supported at my school. We are asking this question. We are asking these questions at the start of the program, at the midpoint, and at the end of the survey, at the end of the program. You will talk with your CSM, you probably already have, about the best time to send those questions out, because every institution has a different schedule. We want to make sure we are working with a schedule that works best for your needs. And again, moving over here to look at assessment data. So there are some really exciting tools on our website to look at your assessment data. Again, I am looking at a test program. So I think here I'll actually strongly encourage pull up your program so you can follow along, because you will see much more interesting data there than you will see on my screen. So right away, we can see the mid-assessment completion rate. That number is going to be here, as well as an increase from the week. Whatever active assessment is currently out, start, mid, or end, is going to be showing up here. You also have an assessments tab down here, and this is going to give us some nice shortcuts and just quick ways to reflect on the data that you're getting. So this chart on the right is going to show you where your average assessment scores are landing. Right now I'm on Mentee. I can shift to Mentor. You will have start, mid, and end will also be on there once that is sent out and you have scores for it. You can see what that average is right here. We know there's just one, but you will, see where that average is landing, and we're looking for this 3 number, right? That's the midpoint. So I generally advise, are things landing above 3? Are things landing below 3? Let's really investigate things that are landing below 3, but you might want to set that somewhere else. This, I think, is my favorite graphic that we have, favorite tool that we have. If you look at this chart, the assessment score, area score distribution, you can see what the distribution is, but more important than that, if I look over here at an average score of 3, we're going to look at this average score of 3. We have 1 participant there. If I want a list of that of those people, I can go right there. In your programs, this is probably a longer list. You're able to export this list and email all of those folks. For a three, I don't know if you'd want to email them, you might, but I find that very useful when we see a score below three. You're able to pull immediately that list of everyone who has a score below three, or maybe everyone who has a score above three is who you want to pull. But that's a quick and easy data pull that you're able to do. You can get all of this data from your exports page. So start, mid, when end launches, end would be there as well. You can export all of that data for mentees or mentors and look at kind of the raw data as well. When you are looking at your data, I wanted to share just some suggestions for understanding impact. Setting a meaningful target, make an action plan, explore the relationships between the variables, and then reflect on the responses. So starting with setting a meaningful target. And again, we're thinking about sense of belonging here, but you don't need to limit this to that if that's not something that happens in your program or if that is not the assessment point with which on which you're focusing the most. Uh, so just asking yourself, what is your target? What range signals celebration? What range signals intervention? And so before I suggested a three as kind of that, that midpoint. Um, Anything below three, maybe we're reaching out, maybe we're intervening, anything above three, maybe we're celebrating. But you might find that your folks are landing a little lower, a little higher, and you really want to, you want folks to be landing above four or wherever it might be for your program. Reflecting on responses. So looking into the data that you see when you pull that data export and looking at different groups, uh, looking at the separate statements, looking at all three statements together. And for all of our assessment points, we do have multiple questions that we ask for each of those assessment points. So that remains true beyond sense of belonging. Um, where can you celebrate? Where can you provide intervention to enhance that sense of belonging? You can look at students mentored and matched in different questions. So sense of belonging and self-efficacy, sense of belonging and help seeking. These are two other areas that we assess with. You can also bring in other data like GPA. Maybe you want to look at persistence, at retention. Maybe you want to look at other demographic factors for thinking about the assessment data that you have received. Then making an action plan. This is something that you can work with your CSM to do. This is something you can do internally. You can pull in other folks from your team to work together on how to address actionable data and sharing whether you have those conversations with your CSM or whether you have those conversations and kind of bring those plans to your CSM. We are really happy to support how you can achieve these actions and how our resources can help you to do so. And my final topic, we are right on schedule as well. Conversation sparks. You probably have received some communication on conversation sparks in the past few weeks. Uh, this is the item I'll spend the least time on for that reason because we just had a webinar on conversation sparks, but I did also want to provide an opportunity to review it, to ask any questions, or to hear any feedback that you have about the use in your program so far. Um, So the goal with Conversation Sparks is to provide personalized support, increase engagement, and better outcomes through these personalized AI-generated questions. We have found that it is often asking that very first question that can be really overwhelming for participants, for mentees, to start engaging with their mentors, and that sometimes when we see mentees aren't engaging, it's not because they don't want to, it's not because they're not checking their email or not answering, um, but because they don't know what to say. So the goal here is to provide something to say, to take that, to take away that barrier in the same way that our different participation models take away a barrier of having to register, of having to opt in. This takes away that barrier of having to write a sentence that makes you sound smart when you meet your mentor. Alrighty. Those are my tips. That is what I have to offer you. Are there any questions? Is there anything you want to delve deeper into, spend a little more time on? I'm happy to return to another slide if anyone has questions to ask. Yes, the recording will be available. Absolutely. Alrighty. Well, I do want to make sure I share these resources as well. So these are some additional resources on all of the items that I talked about, because believe it or not, that's not everything that can be said about any of those things. Each was a quick overview, and I wanted to share a place where you can find more information for some of these topics. We've had webinars on these, so you can look at a full webinar on sense of belonging data, a full webinar on sense of belonging and academic self-efficacy data. Um, oops. You have your Conversation Sparks webinar here as well as some articles on mentee and mentor participation models. Um, and again, as I'm chatting here, as I'm wrapping things up, feel free to put anything in the chat. Feel free to send over a question. But I hope that this information can help you to be looking at your programs and finding some new ways of using your dashboard, new ways of using data, looking at data. And I'd encourage you to bring this to your CSM that you work with, to chat about things that you're interested in, to chat about what are these other participation models. I'd love to get some more mentees in my program, and I want to talk about targeting specific populations, at-risk populations, whatever it might be. Actually included here as well, there are other mentor participation models as well. We didn't address that here, but you can look at that article. You can chat about that with your CSM. Absolutely. Thank you everyone for joining. I will stick around here if anyone does have any questions that they would like to ask today, but otherwise I really appreciate your time.